Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I'm coming with a big time mock draft today. This time we're coming with an Eric Bieniemy 7-round mock draft. First of all, I want to go ahead and let you know I do include our compensatory picks that we're projected to get for Brandon Sheriff and Tim Settle leaving. Also, I traded back with the Saints to go from 16th overall to 29th and 40th. There's just so much talent in this draft. I just feel like trading back makes the most sense. So quite a few of my mock drafts have already included a trade back and probably will still continue to include some, but we'll see when we get closest to the actual draft and I do some more mock drafts. Maybe I'll do some trade up scenarios. Maybe I'll do some where we stay put, but usually I want to do a trade back scenario because I really feel like that would be the smartest route to go. And if you can trade back and get these guys that I have us taking, it's a home run hit of a draft. So some of the notable things from this draft, first of all, with this being an Eric Bieniemy draft, this is designed for him to get a lot of his favorite players that he had on the Chiefs. You can't trade for Travis Kelce, but how about drafting the next one? You can't trade for Orlando Brown. I highly doubt the Chiefs are going to let him go. When in doubt, they'll probably end up franchise tagging him. How about drafting potentially the next Orlando Brown? He loves his receiving backs, his pure third down guys. How about we go draft us one late in the draft? And then, of course, we got to make Eric B and Rakim work together. Eric Bieniemy and Rakim. You'll see when we get there if you don't get it yet. So this draft, there's quite a bit of defense in here. Of course, it's not just going to be offense only. This is a realistic dream case scenario type of mock draft. And we can make this happen. Again, it's a home run hit. But it's not just going to be only offense. This will be a really good draft for us, period. Now, of course, with free agency, who knows if we end up signing guys to where we don't have as big of a need at offensive line or tight end or cornerback or whatever, or linebacker. We'll see when we get there. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Sorry again, too busy to stream today as in Sunday, but I promise I will get to the Sunday streams where I have the call-in shows where y'all can pull up and call in. Sorry, another really busy day, but I wanted to make sure I at the very least got this mock draft done. I wasn't able to get a video done yesterday, but I promise I am at least getting a video out today as in Sunday. So make sure I stay tuned for all of the content because like I said, for my channel members only, I'm gonna start working on some field sessions for a lot of these players, especially some of the players that I have in this mock draft, because some of them are some pretty polarizing figures who some people are very high on, some people are very low on. So I think at the end of the day, we got to look at the film and decide for ourselves. Just because I like somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. We could be looking at the same film and take two completely different opinions from it. So stay on the lookout for all of my film sessions coming out as well. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, again, just to recap, this mock draft includes the compensatory picks that we're projected to get from Brandon Sheriff and Tim Settle. And I also traded back with the Saints, going from our 16th overall pick and getting their 29th and 40th. The Saints could trade up. The reason why this is mutually beneficial, and I also looked at the draft value chart and the draft value calculator and why this is very realistic. And I was able to pull this off in one of those mock draft simulators where they can either accept or deny a trade offer, and it went through on there as well. So this is very realistic. The Saints could trade up to 16 to get a truly franchise changing player. We could go back to 29th and 40 because again, there's so many good to great players that are still going to be available going into the early second round. So for us to be able to pick 29th, 40th, and 47th, we could walk away with 3 potential starters right there. For sure. Let's go ahead and get into it, man. Round 1, 29th overall, and I'm not even sure if he's gonna make it this far down by the time we get to the draft, because just a couple of weeks ago a lot of people didn't even know about this guy and I was pretty high on him, but now Daniel Jeremiah talking him up, is just, the internet's just spiraling out of control. There's quite a few people out there that already were high on Dalton Kincaid before Daniel Jeremiah was speaking on him just a couple of days ago, but a lot of people heard Daniel Jeremiah's statements on him and was like, who is this? So now with him projected to potentially even go in the second round, I doubt it at this point. And if he makes it to 29, you better sprint to turn in that ballot, because this man could potentially be the next Travis Kelce. And who better to potentially turn Dalton Kincaid into Travis Kelce than Travis Kelce's offensive coordinator for the past 5 years, Eric Bieniemy. I feel like that's a match made in heaven. If we can make that happen, everybody wins. Now, of course, nobody coming out of any draft ever, even as much as I love Brock Bowers, I'm not just going to automatically declare that he's going to be the next Travis Kelce. Well, first of all, Brock Bowers and Travis Kelce wise, they have kind of different play styles, but Dalton Kincaid shows a lot of similarities to Travis Kelce as far as blocking and receiving. But of course, again, I'm not going to declare anybody's going to be the next Travis Kelce coming out of the draft, because Travis Kelce is a certified first ballot Hall of Famer, arguably the best tight end in the league for several years running. If Dalton Kincaid were to automatically become that, he would be going top 3 in the draft, potentially even number 1 overall, if we knew for a fact he could be Travis Kelce. So I'm not saying he will be Travis Kelce, but there's a lot of Travis Kelce-like things out there. One thing I definitely agree with Daniel Jeremiah about is that you could kind of compare him to a Zach Ertz, but even slightly better coming out of the draft. Zach Ertz went in the 2nd round for the Philadelphia Eagles, so I'm assuming Dalton Kincaid, if he's a slightly better version of that, I think him making it to 29 could potentially be realistic, but again, his draft stock is spiraling out of control just from conversations around the league lately. Again, just weeks ago, you easily could have gotten him in a mock draft simulator in the 2nd round. But now, as we're getting closer to the actual draft, and I think after he shows up to the combine and shows that crazy catch radius, I don't think he's making it out of the 1st round at all, and I would pray that he makes it to 29th overall. But I still, for mock draft purposes, have to dream a little bit, and I have us taking him 29th overall in the 1st round. I mean, let's just talk about the stats alone. 2 drops on 108 catchable passes over the last 2 seasons. Only 2 drops. And he was 16 of 27 in contested catch situations. That's ridiculous. If you go look at the tape, he arguably has some of the best hands we've seen from a tight end in several draft classes. And then his blocking, not great, but also not terrible, which is kind of like Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce can be a great blocker when you need him to be, but he focuses so much on his receiving that it's not like you necessarily need him to do that all the time. And hey, man, if the Commanders wanted to go Dalton Kincaid in the 1st round with the 29th overall pick, and then with that 40th overall pick that we also got from the Saints, go and get Darnell Washington if you were to make it that far. Now you have a 3rd tackle on the field and potentially the next Travis Kelce, maybe at the very least a better version of Zach Ertz as your 2-star tight ends. Now, I don't have us taking Darnell Washington in this mock draft, but that's just my point there. If you're so worried about Dalton Kincaid's blocking, which isn't anywhere near as bad as a lot of people act like it is. Again, it's not great, but it's not terrible. It's not Cole Turner coming out of the draft. It's not Armani Rogers coming out of the draft. I don't even think it's Logan Thomas bad from last year. It's serviceable. And he's aggressive when he needs to be when it comes to blocking. Literally, the only thing I wish is that he was a little bit taller, but it hasn't mattered because when you go turn on the highlight tape, he's making crazy catches. George Pickens looking stuff. And as far as blocking goes, get him into an NFL weight room, probably fixes some of that. But again, with him being potentially an elite receiving tight end at the NFL level, catches everything you throw at him, and then Eric Bieniemy could get the best out of him. He's running offense with the Travis Kelce. So who's better out there to get the most out of Dalton Kincaid than Eric Bieniemy? Scheming them open, getting them into favorable situations. Dalton Kincaid would ball out for the Commanders under Eric Bieniemy. Plain and simple, no matter who the quarterback is. Very willing blocker, just needs to add some strength, and again, some of the best hands in the draft regardless of position. Tight end wise, again, some of the best hands we've seen in several drafts. Arguably the best hands we've seen from a tight end in a few drafts. But just this overall draft period, even including receivers, he's up there as having some of the best hands. He's already coming in with a lot of route running experience and running quite a bit of the route tree, not just things underneath, but things deep down the field as well. Then he's a natural athlete. I can't wait to see how he tests at the combine. I'm telling y'all, man, Dalton Kincaid is just one of them ones right now. And it sucks too, because I was working on this mock draft for like the past week, a little over a week, and then Daniel Jeremiah had to come out here and blow up the spot by talking about him being potentially another Travis Kelce. And so now everybody's talking about it. I was hoping I could break the Dalton Kincaid news on y'all better look out for this guy, but hey, it is what it is. Either way, I don't care. As long as the Commanders find a way to get him, I would be ecstatic about that. I mean, he may be so good that I may not even risk trading back from 16. If he's there at 16, you may want to go ahead and get him. I'm not gonna lie. But for mock draft purposes and having fun, I would trade back and still find a way to get him. This is a mock draft. We gotta have a little bit of fun. Can't be just completely super realistic. Gotta dream a little bit. And then round 2, 40th overall, I have us taking offensive tackle Anton Harrison from Oklahoma. And a lot of people feel like he's the best tackle in this class, at the very least potentially. I know my boy Washington Command Center. I believe my boys at the Burgundy Pod. Make sure y'all subscribe to all of those guys. Follow their Twitter and everything. My boys over there at the Burgundy Zone, all of them. A lot of those guys are really high on Anton Harrison and feel like he's the best tackle in the class. And I can see why, man. Most notably, a lot of the things that's the hardest to teach or things that you just can't teach at all, he has that. Like as far as athleticism, as far as like natural footwork and quick feet. Not the most technical feet. We still got to work on some technique as far as that goes, but like length, you can't teach length. You can't teach his athleticism. You can't teach how nimble he is on his feet and how agile he is. And then some of the hardest things to teach somebody to have is hand placement. And I feel like he's pretty good with that. He's fairly inconsistent, but usually he gets his hands exactly where he needs to on guys, whether they're the strong, slower guys or the quick, speedy, smaller guys. He just seems like he usually finds the right answer as far as where to place his hands. I feel like if we could just get him in an NFL gym, because he's 6'5", only 309 pounds. I know when you hear only 309 pounds, that's pretty crazy, but 6'5", especially with the frame that he has, he could definitely add more weight and gain more strength. So we can solve the strength problem right there. And then there's times on tape where he looks like he's really strong when he does all of the right things technique wise, but I would love it if he could just gain some muscle in an NFL workout program, in an NFL gym, and become a true monster. And I can definitely see the potential where a lot of people feel like him, or maybe even like a Darnell Wright, could potentially be the best tackles in this class when we're talking about potential and things like that. But again, the reason I love Anton Harrison so much, y'all know I'm a big Broderick Jones fan, and that's not even just me being a Georgia Bulldog fan. I mean, I feel like when you don't allow any sacks in an entire season while playing against top competition all year, I feel like that's noteworthy, especially with a guy like him that has a very high ceiling, who's very athletic and extremely strong. But I can see why a lot of people feel like Anton Harrison could be the best tackle in the draft. I can see it. There's definitely an argument to be made. I don't just all outright disagree. There's a lot to work with right there. Again, when you can get a prospect, no matter the position, where they're really good at things that are hard to teach or pretty much impossible to teach, again, length, balance, athleticism, things like that, and then the things that he needs to work on are easily teachable, that's the type of guy you take a risk on and you're like, we'll figure it out. And I feel like all he needs is probably just one off season of getting bigger and working on certain technique things, especially like footwork, and he could potentially be our starting left tackle by week 1. I mean, I'm that high on Anton Harrison as well. I mean, a really good player that I feel like is getting slept on mightily right now. And a lot of people feel like a zone rushing scheme would be best for him, and that's what the Commanders have been running for a long time now, and that's just the ideal fit. Again, we could bring the best out of Anton Harrison, and Anton Harrison could potentially make our offensive line great. So just like Dalton Kincaid, it could be a match made in heaven for both prospects, where we both benefit mightily. Again, I can see it with Anton Harrison, man. And then next up, round 2, 47th overall, with our original second round pick that we already had. I have us taking cornerback Kelee Ringo from the Champions. We ain't even got to speak on what college he's from. All you got to know, he's from the Champion. And you could argue he's the freakiest corner in the class. When we're only talking about length, speed, acceleration, and quickness, he's the freakiest corner in the class easily. His biggest problem is his change of direction, man. He's so stiff in the hips. It's just so weird to see somebody that athletic that's just can't change direction for nothing. I mean, he gets beat to the inside almost every time until he's just like, all right, y'all not going to beat me on the inside. You're just going to have to beat me up top. And he showed that against Ohio State at a certain point in that semifinal game. He was like, all right, man, I've been getting beat inside all year against no-name receivers from any college. And then he just decided, all right, I'm gonna stop getting beat inside. And then he actually played very well. It's really underrated how well he played against Ohio State. Against some of the best competition that he went against all season is when he played his best. But it's just like we go against teams like Samford State and he's out here getting cooked by anybody, by guys I can't even remember their names. Kelee Ringo is just so drastically inconsistent. His tape is just so muddy that I could easily see him making it to the second round, even after he dominates the combine. Now it's going to be really interesting to see what he looks like at the combine as far as agility drills and things involving change of direction and having better hips than he shows on tape. That's what's going to be really interesting. But Kelee Ringo, you can argue, has the highest ceiling in this class out of all corners. But the problem is, can you get him to learn how to not get beat inside all the time, to get your head turned around when you need to on outside balls to the sideline, to not gamble and miss completely for no reason when you're in position and then just giving up position at the last second. I think that was the game against Tennessee where he was right there and then went and jumped on the ball or something too early, and then it just ended up being a wide open receiver. I believe that was Tennessee. It may have been another team, but it was definitely this past season. Kelee Ringo's tape is just the most inconsistent thing you've ever watched. If you look at all of his great plays and then look at all of his bad plays, you would swear up and down that's a completely different corner. So I think him making it to the second round is completely realistic. And the thing is, man, at 47th overall, he may be the best player available at that time. And we do have a cornerback need. Now, am I confident after you drafted Kelee Ringo that our cornerback need is filled? No. But at least you're getting a ball of clay that you can mold into potentially a lockdown corner. There's some traits there that you can build on. He was a 5-star for a reason. And he has pretty good ball skills as well. So I would take a risk on Kelee Ringo at that point, round 2, 47th overall. Of course, I'm higher on Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon, Joey Porter, and all of those guys that have way higher floors than Kelee Ringo. But Kelee Ringo has the higher ceiling, and also those guys won't be available in the second round. I mean, I'd be shocked if 2 of those 3 guys are available by the time we pick 16th overall even. So we might as well go ahead and get detached from like Christian Gonzalez and Devon Witherspoon and maybe even Joey Porter. I see those 2 guys going ahead of Joey Porter, but even then I'm not entirely too sure and confident that he'll be available at 16th overall. So as much as I want those guys, I just don't think it's realistic. And at that point, if you can get Dalton Kincaid and Anton Harrison, you'll figure out cornerback later. Get Kelee Ringo in the 3rd round and keep it pushing. Then round 3, 97th overall, I have us taking interior offensive lineman Andrew Voorhees from USC. And at that point, if he's available, he's clearly best player available. But this isn't just like some crazy dream prayer where there's no way he's available in the 3rd round. It's quite realistic that he could be. But man, if he's available there, especially with us having some offensive lineman uncertainties right now, he would be the best player available. And he has the potential to be a really good starting guard at the NFL level, especially left guard, which he played a lot at USC. But I would even try him at center, man. I would just go ahead and give it a go. Give him a chance at center, see what happens. And this guy's all strength, man. He has the anchor when it comes to pass protection. He has crazy power at the point of attack, especially in the run game, in run blocking. On tape, it looks like his arms are long enough for sure to dominate at left guard if you want him to. He has the athleticism and the size of what you want in a guard, 6'6", 320. You just got to work on his pad level and technique, man. You work on that, man, you may have yourself one in Andrew Voorhees, man. I would be a little shocked to see him make it into the 3rd round. And at that point, if he makes it to the 3rd round and we have the 97th pick overall, I would trade up to one of those earlier 3rd round picks and find a way to secure that. Get out of that compensatory pick from Brandon Sheriff, trade up into the early 3rd round and get that guy. He will be worth it. Again, it's a mock draft, so it's a little bit of wishful thinking here, but I don't think it's impossible for him to be available in the 3rd round. And again, Andrew Voorhees is a really good player, especially at guard. If Chris Paul doesn't work out, or Samuel Cosme, if you want him to stay at tackle, Andrew Voorhees could easily be your answer there. But even though he doesn't have much experience playing center in college, I would at least try him there just in case this whole Chase Roullier thing doesn't work out, because he keeps getting hurt. So that's why I have him as interior offensive lineman, because I think he has potential at left guard, right guard, and center if you work with him. Maybe a little bit of a learning curve, but with as strong as he is and with as high of a ceiling as he has, I'm willing to take that risk. Let's do it. And again, I'd be willing to trade up higher in the 3rd round to get him. Then round 4, 117th overall, I have us taking quarterback Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. And a new offensive coordinator is always going to want to draft or at least bring in some type of quarterback for some type of development. I mean, it seems like he likes Sam Howell a lot. Seems like he's fired up about him. Those are his exact words. But I think it would be malpractice for him not to at least bring in somebody to compete. It's more than likely going to be some type of veteran, maybe like a younger one, or maybe just an older one, just in case Sam Howell is like terrible for some crazy reason, which I don't think he would be, or ends up getting hurt, because he does play with somewhat of a reckless play style. But I could easily see Eric Bieniemy bringing in like a Hendon Hooker from Tennessee type of guy, developmental quarterback. And really the best way to describe him is that I feel like if he never got hurt, you would start to see that he was a little bit Deshaun Watson. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but his arm is strong. He's not the fastest guy, but he's quite mobile. And then he has a lot of really good base technique to work from. Like, his mechanics are solid. He's really accurate. His biggest problems are just that he's older than you would hope. I mean, it's kind of like the Stetson Bennett effect type of thing. He's also recovering from a fairly recent ACL injury late into the season. And then also the offense he was running for Tennessee just does not translate very well to the NFL level. Just a super vertical spread, high tempo type of offense. And now granted, Eric Bieniemy could make that transition very easy for him, but there's definitely some things to work with here. I mean, at 6'4", 220 pounds, he has the exact build that you would want in a quarterback. And again, he's very mobile. He may not be the fastest guy. He's not Malik Willis. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Kyler Murray. And he may not even necessarily be Jalen Hurts. But he's kind of Deshaun Watson-y. Like, he's right around there, where it's definitely enough to make him a threat on the ground and open up the playbook to where you can do all kinds of things with that type of guy. Some people even compare him to this past season's Geno Smith. Geno Smith at his best, that's what Hendon Hooker could potentially be. And I can kind of see that. I mean, again, I don't want to compare him to Deshaun Watson because when he was at his best, he was easily a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but he has a lot of similar traits. And again, it's not like you're getting this super raw quarterback. The offense he ran makes him a raw quarterback, but as far as mechanics and accuracy and technique and things like that, you're coming in with a fairly polished quarterback. And I feel like when in doubt, after he recovers from his ACL injury, fully recovers from it, if anything were to happen to Sam Howell, gets hurt or whatever, or is just plain old terrible, again, I highly doubt that happens because I like Sam Howell a lot. And I think he could potentially be a really good franchise quarterback for us, especially with that arm talent and that running ability. But I feel like if Hendon Hooker is fully recovered from his ACL injury, he's a guy that you can throw in there and he maybe can win you a game or two in his rookie season, especially later into the season. So he's somewhat of a developmental quarterback, but that's more so because of the offense that he's coming from. But him, as far as traits go, I mean, there was talk before he got hurt, and especially before the way my Georgia Bulldogs did him, that he could end up becoming one of the top quarterbacks taken in this draft. Now, a lot of people have forgotten about him because the last couple of times we saw him, he wasn't that great, and of course the ACL injury. But I believe in Hendon Hooker, and I think he could end up being a really good quarterback down the line. And again, just logically, I think Eric Bieniemy, a new offensive coordinator, comes in, and of course, even as much as he may like Sam Howell, he's going to bring in some quarterback, veteran, rookie, maybe even both. And then round 5, 150th overall, Levis taking linebacker Owen Popo from Auburn, and he's basically a high ceiling linebacker with elite coverage potential. Pretty raw, but if we're talking about athleticism, he's one of the most athletic guys in this draft, and we're not even talking about just linebackers alone. We're talking about this entire draft, man. His coverage ability is there, man. He's so explosive, he's so quick, change of direction, speed, everything. He has a lot of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in him, man. A lot of it. His problem is that he doesn't have the IQ that JOK had coming out. But I would definitely argue that he's even more athletic. But again, very raw as far as everything from the neck up. IQ, awareness, and things like that. You got to work with him there. And then also with him being 6'1", 230 pounds, I would prefer that he add a little bit more weight if you want him to become a potential franchise middle linebacker. Because Jamin Davis is 234, and Owen Popo right now, before the combine, he'll probably gain some weight for the combine, but as of right now, last time I checked, he was like 225. So elite coverage ability, but as far as stopping the run and being involved in all of the dirty work in the middle, in the teeth of the defense, we'll have to wait to see as far as that goes. But he has the frame to add a lot more weight, and I think he could end up being even heavier than a Jamin Davis if he wants to be. And I think he's so explosive and just such an athletic freak that he could add that weight and still be a really, really good, maybe even elite coverage linebacker at the NFL level. And then work ethic, I mean, he's just one of those guys that just gets better and better and is willing to do all of the dirty work. Even with his size, he's not afraid to mix it up with offensive linemen. So it's not a mental block for him being able to stop the run. It's just, you just got to be big enough. You got to be strong enough. It doesn't matter how much will and determination you have at the NFL level to stop the run. You got to have the right mass. So if we work on that, the coverage ability is there. Again, we still got to work on some IQ things and as far as understanding coverages and route concepts and things like that to make them better, but physically it's all there. And then there's times at tape where he looks like the best coverage linebacker in the draft. And then him off the blitz, man, him blitzing is scary, man. It's scary times for people, man, I'm telling you. So this is a guy you take in the 5th round gladly. Developmental project. May not be ready to start week 1 of this NFL season, but he's one of those guys with the type of talent that you develop him, he could be something serious for the Commanders long term. Him, Jamin Davis, and whatever third linebacker we end up having being our future linebacker. I mean, I would like for Cole Holcomb to be that guy, but he's got to stay healthy, and he's technically not even on the roster roster right now. We got to sign him to a long-term contract, hopefully for very cheap. But I feel like Owen Popo could definitely add to our linebacker group that was missing a lot of explosion, especially after Cole Holcomb got hurt. And then Jamin Davis is still learning. He's not perfect. He's way better than he used to be, but he's still learning. And then another thing, probably the thing that bothers me the most with Owen Popo right now, is that he has a lot of missed tackles. So we got to work on that. But coverage ability, arguably the best coverage linebacker in the draft. And then he's not afraid of anybody. So even though he's relatively small, he's not afraid to mix it up and do the dirty work. You just got to add some mass, work on his missed tackle problem, and then just get him some reps so he can develop mentally. Because that's the thing probably holding him back the most right now, is that he just doesn't have a lot of experience or enough experience. So just work on him. He may not be ready week 1, but eventually you could potentially have a Pro Bowl level linebacker on your hand. I mean, he's that much of a freak athlete with that high of a ceiling. And then round 6, 192nd overall, Evers taking wide receiver, I believe is pronounced Rakim Jarrett from Maryland, but I'm gonna say Rakim so we can have Eric B as in Eric Bieniemy and Rakim as in Rakim Jarrett. Eric B and Rakim. Let's do it, man. Let's make it happen. But the main reason I have us taking him, even beyond just the fun of the name, first of all, he was a 5-star prospect coming out. So every time there's a 5-star prospect, there's just some untapped potential there, and maybe Maryland just couldn't get it out of him. But I see him as a very high upside returner. Now, I know we do have Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel, who I feel like could easily be great returners. Dax Milne is a safe returner, but I do want to add some explosion to our punt return and kick return game. Now, we did start the experiment with Antonio Gibson on the kick return side, but I think you could only make your team better by bringing in a Rakim Jarrett from Maryland. And again, with Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel, the Commanders so far have acted like those guys are just too valuable to throw back there on punt returns and things like that. So why not bring in a guy that could potentially do that? And I mean, we could talk about Rakim Jarrett as a receiver, and I like the floor that he comes with route running wise, but the main reason I'm drafting this guy is to potentially be our next DeAndre Carter type of guy. I think he has that type of potential to him, man. I love his return ability. His run after catch, if you just get him the ball in space, I think he could eat. With everybody paying so much attention to Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel, Rakim Jarrett could come in and be an instant impact player just off of that, because he's always going to be open. Everybody else focusing their attention on those guys, and say we have the exact draft that we had, they're gonna have to worry about Dalton Kincaid as well. So Rakim Jarrett is gonna be open all the time, and then his run after catch ability right there, he's sort of like a McCole Hartman, who I would not be surprised if Eric Bieniemy finds a way to bring him here from the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, he wasn't a 5-star recruit for nothing. There's a lot of untapped potential there, and I think the Commanders, especially Eric Bieniemy, could get it out of him. I do not lose track of 5-star prospects, man. You know I'm heavy into recruiting, and so I'm looking around like, whatever happened to that Rakim Jarrett guy that I wanted my Georgia Bulldogs to get? And I mean, I've watched some of his tape from Maryland. I think he has a lot of potential there that was just not tapped into. I mean, first of all, he's a really high IQ player. When it comes to zone coverage, he always finds a way to find an opening there. And anybody like that, especially with his type of hands, is going to be able to come in and contribute immediately to a team. And again, the high upside as a returner, I feel like that's a home run hit in the 6th round. And then with our second 6th round pick, 214th overall, I was taking guard Anthony Bradford from LSU. And this is a strong, high upside guard that needs a lot of development and experience. Out of all of the players that I've taken so far in this mock draft, he's probably the rawest. But if we're looking at physical attributes and potential, he may have one of the highest upsides from this draft class as well, man. I mean, the strength, the athleticism, all we just got to work on is his lateral agility. Like right now, speed rushers are his kryptonite. But anybody with strength, oh, he's mowing them down. Anything strength-wise is not a problem at all. Pass protection-wise, he has a crazy anchor. Nobody's getting past him once he gets set in his own anchor, once he drops his hips and everything. But we do got to work on his lateral agility. Now, you can make up for that by having better hand placement, better footwork to be able to deal with speedy rushers, especially on the inside. But as an interior offensive lineman, I think he's that ball of clay that you can mold into a potential Pro Bowl player if you can get the most out of him. Now, it's not very likely, which is the reason why he would be available in the 6th round, but the potential is there. The high ceiling is definitely there, and I would definitely take a risk on an Anthony Bradford in the 6th round. I for sure would. I would sprint to the podium to do that one. And then with the final pick of the Commanders mock draft, round 7, 234th overall, I was taking running back Eric Gray from Oklahoma University, Anton Harrison's teammate. I'm pretty sure sure they will be happy to meet back up on the same team. And basically, he's a third down back with route running ability and experience, man. He's basically a J.D. McKissic clone. J.D. McKissic, I'm pretty sure, is gone. We already extended Jonathan Williams one more year. But when you look at our running back room, I mean, Antonio Gibson has a lot of pass catching ability, of course, being a wide receiver turned running back going into the NFL, but he's kind of a bigger guy. J.D. McKissic had a specific role in this team as a pure third down back that can run routes and everything, and even coming with some really good pass blocking. Brian Robinson is of course the bruiser that can catch the ball out of the backfield, and then Jonathan Williams can do a little bit of both. But we don't just have that pure tiny shifty J.D. McKissic like guy anymore on this roster. And at 5'9", 206 pounds, Eric Gray could be that guy. I mean, his agility, his run after catch is scary, and then he comes with the route running of a receiver. His ability to make people miss, man, is scary. Now, he doesn't have the pass protection that J.D. McKissic has. That's the one way where he's literally not J.D. McKissic, and that's the main reason he would make it to the 7th round, because of his lack of pass blocking. But I know Eric Bieniemy loves his Clyde Edwards-Helaire's and all of these random assortment of running backs that just come in and contribute and are productive because of the offense that he was running with the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I've always said it doesn't matter who the running back is for the Chiefs. You make sure you start them any given week in fantasy football. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be me as the running back for the Chiefs. And I just feel like that type of system with Eric Bieniemy bringing that to the Commanders, especially with all of the weapons that we already have, Eric Gray could become something special. And again, the next J.D. McKissic for the Commanders. Again, I don't really see J.D. McKissic staying with us with the neck problems for the most part. Like, I just want him to go ahead and retire and call it quits. I don't want anything crazy to happen. So J.D. McKissic, I'm sorry about the whole Buffalo Bills situation, and then we brought you back and then you dipped out on that potential Super Bowl winning team to come back to us for us to barely play you, and then you suffered another neck injury. I believe this is like the second or third time he's done it. Just retire. Like, just call it quits. Just quit while you're ahead, man, please. And so the Commanders will probably have to bring in their prototypical Chiefs type of running back, their J.D. McKissic potential clone, and Eric Gray I feel like could be that guy. And I also feel like at the very least he can come in and compete for one of those returning spots with Rakim Jarrett. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Let me know how you feel about this mock draft. How do you feel about the trade back scenario? How do you feel about the players I took? Do you think they will even be available at the picks that I took them? Do you feel like this mock draft is just too unrealistic? How do you feel about Anton Harrison potentially being the best tackle in the class? How do you feel about Dalton Kincaid being potentially the best tight end in this class, and maybe even the next Travis KELCE, a better version of Zach Ertz? How do you feel about Kelee Ringo? Would you not even want to touch him even if he's available in the 2nd round? How do you feel about all of these guys? Are you willing to take a chance on Hendon Hooker? Do you think it's realistic and logical for Eric Bieniemy to come in and bring some type of quarterback into the mix and not just put all of his faith in Sam Howell? And let me know how you feel about all of these picks, and also let me know what type of mock draft you would do with the Commanders, especially in this scenario where we trade back from 16th to the 29th and 40th picks from the Saints. Use that exact format with those exact picks and let me know what type of mock draft you would do. I will be in the comment section checking those out, and of course, man, I appreciate all the support. Again, please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything, and I appreciate all my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.